Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Executive Insights from Shipping and Freight Resource. My name is Harish Manadia. I'm the founder of Shipping and Freight Resource, a niche resource in the industry providing data insights and other insights relating to the business. Executive Insights is a series of interviews and discussions that we have with some of the main people in the industry, the movers and shakers, if you may. And today we have Thomas Bagge, who is the CEO of Digital Container Shipping Association. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Executive Insights, Thomas. It's a pleasure to have you.
All right, good morning and thank you for having me.
It has been 2 years since DCSA, as it is now known, came into existence. Could you give us a bit of a background on the genesis of DCSA and how the progress has been since its inception?
Yeah, naturally. One of the reasons why we started DCSA back in 2018-19. That was because we saw many other industries that were significantly more advanced than we are when it comes to digitalization. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to see what we could condense from those industries, whether it's banking or telco or retail or media or any. There's a number of them to see what we could condense and take into our industry and see whether we could not aid the digitalization of container shipping and let's say pull it up towards the 21st century. So that's some of the background for why we did it. So what have we been up to? We've certainly been busy. The first thing we needed to do was we needed to have a discussion with our members around, let's say, the process landscape or the way of doing business for non-compete processes. We call that the industry blueprint, and the industry blueprint is essentially meant to simplify and both standardize or harmonize the way we do business as pertains to non-compete processes. And we've seen that in other industries. The airline industry is a great example. Banking is another great example. But for instance, the airline industry, where everything now, when you book an airline ticket, is digitalized. That has happened because IATA has been in and defining what data requirements are needed to book an airline ticket, like your first name and surname and passport number and so on. And we believe that by doing the same thing in container shipping, by harmonizing and standardizing what information is required, as an example, to make a booking, we believe that we will be able to further the digitalization of the documentation processes. So that was industry blueprint was quite crucial. On top of that, there is a data model, which is the architecture that we then use when we talk about the standards. So we talk about arrival notifications. What kind of data goes into the arrival notification. So that's some of the work we've done. We do work on cybersecurity, on IoT. On documentation, as I just mentioned, and then we do on operational processes. So that's what we've been up to for the past 2 years.
That's great. That's great. Yes, DCSA has definitely been making a lot of news, and I have featured quite a bit of your standards on my site as well. So while standards is not a new thing, we have the ISO in shipping as well. Standards in the shipping industry, though, has been quite a challenging task based on the enormity and diversity of the industry. What was DCSA's strategy in, first of all, getting the industry to listen? Because we are a tough bunch to listen to standards and other things.
Well, I think first and foremost, our membership group consists of 9 of the top 10 container shipping lines, and we represent more than 70% of the world's containerized trade. So I think that's one way of let's say becoming a credible voice. But another one is also the fact that we're not for profit. We are open source, and that also gives I say that, let's say this is not an initiative that is in any way intended to generate a profit for our members or ourselves. So we hope that by the introduction of these standards, that that the wider industry will gain, and that creates some credibility to it. But then of course from there on, that's more in the setup in our governance. But I think, let's say, practically, in practical terms, a lot of the work we do with a lot of international parties like the United Nations. We do with IMO and BIMCO and European Commission. We do it with the US regulators and authorities, the World Customs Organization and ISO for that matter. So we try and bring, let's say, stakeholders together, and thereby those of our international organizations, but also, of course, on the shipper side, the freight forwarder sides, the ports, the terminals, and the technology service providers. So we try in our approach to invite everybody to the table, to have a say about how we should go. Of course, we can't promise anything, but that's really, it is a challenge. As you say, the enormities, let's say, can be quite overwhelming at times. But on the other hand, if we don't get started now, then everybody stands to lose, I think.
Yeah, and you've got a great start by getting the top shipping lines together, and that in itself says a lot. How many standards does DCSA have currently, and how many have been created so far, and how many is in progress?
Yeah, so I don't sit with the specific numbers that of publications we have, and some of them are also covering like track and trace are covering the same ones a number of times. We try and do our work a little bit agile. We know that for some that's a bit of a frustration, but for others we also hear that, and that's our own philosophy, is that by getting something out there, we make sure that everybody knows that there's momentum, even if we come with a subsequent one. But let's take the customer-facing ones. I mean, we have the track and trace API, which is out there in several versions. We have our electronic bill of lading, which came out not too long ago, and then we have the booking API that we are planning to see shortly, and then we have a number of sort of smaller ones, but that's pretty much in the customer facing ones. Then we also have let's say the ones that deal with the operations, and that they may be more internal or maybe more part of the, let's say, the clockwork itself. That's more with ports. It's our just-in-time port call. It's where we use the operational vessel schedules that we have that we've launched. We also have IoT standards, a number of them, to make sure that over a period of time we'll create let's say an interoperable ecosystem where the IoT containers of any given carrier can speak with the vessel sharing or the partners that they have where they share vessels, which we think is very crucial. So those are, let's say, those are the more fundamental ones. I think personally, if we look at them, especially the one that relates to, we call it our electronic documentation, that has a tremendous impact to global trade, because the UK Law Commission has just been out estimating that the world can have 24 billion pounds of additional trade if we were to go from paper towards digital. And they also came out with that the environmental impact of removing paper from international trade would be equivalent to planting more than 400 million trees every year. So it is the opportunity is enormous, and in a time where where sustainability is rightfully so high on everybody's agenda, and we shouldn't keep on just perpetuating the ways that we've always done things with bills of lading, when we have technology at our disposal that can solve these things. So I think especially that part for me is something that really resonates both with the data quality issues we see that will be resolved as a consequence of further digitalization, but also the sustainability part. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the topic of just-in-time for main port call activities, because in the recent action plan of Biden-Harris released by the White House, they've indicated a series of actions, including enabling data to support supply chains, and they've made a call for new data standards for goods movement. I'm sure you must have been very happy to hear that. And how does that tie into DCSA's functioning? And also, do you think this call for data standards will help the congestion issues that we're facing currently?
Short term it won't. Long term, medium term, it absolutely will. I think part of it is let's say it's there's many contributing factors to the situation we see, especially on the US West Coast, and just data standards won't solve that. There's equipment shortages, there's a lack of truck drivers, there's regulation that has banned certain trucks from being on the roads, and so there are many things. But of course, data standards, you can say, is one of them. Yeah, do I think it will help? Yeah, I do think that it's a government to business collaboration is essential for solving international trade. Businesses will have a hard time doing it alone. They need the assistance of governments, and here I'm particularly thinking about the regulatory regimes. As you may know, we don't have a worldwide recognized law system that recognizes the electronic transfer of documents, and therefore that's one of the reasons why we still have bills of lading that are transported all over the world. But in general, we are of course pleased that standards and data standards are being discussed also at a governmental level, and we are actively engaging in the conversations both with the U.S. Ports Envoy, but also with the Federal Maritime Commissions and the Department of Congress and Transport in the U.S.
That's great. Great to hear, actually. In this how many ports have sort of conformed to the standards or accepted or have agreed to work together with these standards, especially on the just-in-time port call activities? You need also the ports buy-in.
Yes, of course, absolutely. And that, that's a journey, to be quite honest. What we do right now is we work with a series of ports, and we've sort of set them up in sequences, and we set our pace according to the pace that our members are willing to support us on, because it is first and foremost their investments that are carrying the work. But we work with the Port of Singapore, we work with the Port of Valencia, work with Rotterdam, and we work with Hamburg now. And then there's a series of I think for 2022 there are 8 more ports being added to that, so we'll get to a total of 12. And let's say the more encouraging parts of that is the work with the terminal operators and the port authorities, because there's plenty more that are asking and are sort of opening their eyes for seeing how they can become part of this. And I think that is it will take quite a long while to get everybody on the standards, but I do think that ultimately what is required is we need a number of first movers and ports and terminal operators that are willing to experiment, that are willing to try out new things, because what we've come up with is not perfect yet. It will only be perfect when we really collaborate and work together on it.
Good. And I'm glad you brought up the topic of the the regulatory functions as well. Do you think down the line DCSA standards could become mandatory for the benefit of the industry, and it will in some way become a regulatory requirement for whether it is the port or customers or customs, as you mentioned?
I'm personally I'm a free marketeer, so I hope not. And that, you know, that's not to say that in certain industries, utilities is a great example. You need a regulatory let's say more regulatory control, but I don't suspect that I don't hope it should be necessary for us to have regulatory mandated standards. I think the industry will be better off by collaborating on them and showing regulators that we can come up with standards, we can adopt standards, and we show the customers that we can do that to help alleviate some of the supply chain challenges that are currently present in the world.
Great. Before we wrap up, do you have anything that you would like to say from DCSA perspective to the industry and to those to the listeners?
Yeah, well, I think that you know, it's very fundamental to that we all become part of the change that we want to see, and so I would really ask you know, companies and people that are willing to try out new things, to get involved, to reach out and to try out things, even if they're not perfect, because it's only by you know, what is it they say, that the longest journey starts with the first step, and we can't just sit around and be dissatisfied with the way things are without contributing to the solution. So I would really encourage anyone, whether it is ports or terminal operators, it's shippers or freight forwarders, it's technology service providers, it's regulators, anybody that's watching this and wants to be part of this, to reach out and help us create some data standards and better, let's say, more efficient and effective supply chains.
Well, it's been an interesting conversation, and thank you for your time today on Shipping and Freight Resource Terminals. And we wish you and DCSA team very well in creating and maintaining more standards for the benefit of the industry. And hope you have a good day further.
Thank you very much, Eric.